Hello, I'm Ann Gritch, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this segment of the oral history of the Diocese of San Jose. And I am very pleased that with us today is Marcos Herrera, who is one of the outstanding lay leaders in our diocese. So welcome.
Thank you, Ann.
It's good to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born, how you came to this country?
Sure, Ann. I was born in Mexico, in a small town then of Imuris, Sonora, in northern Mexico. And my parents were from Zacatecas, in a ranchito there. Pretty much nothing, just a small town, and lived off the land. And then they moved up to Sonora, and that's where I was born with three of my other siblings. And one was born down in Zacatecas. And then my dad was a bracero in 1945 and in 1950. And in 57, I was born in 54, decided to come up to here to immigrate to the United States. We had a great aunt in Redwood City, so that's why we immigrated with documentation. The difference back then was it was very easy to do. I'm told that it only took us a couple of months to get our paperwork, and we came in with our documentation and settled here in Redwood City. Again, my dad being a bracero, probably he was in the system, so he probably supported that.
Well, I remember as a little girl, the bracero movement was something that was very important to California agriculture. So
That's right.
He was probably much more welcome than sadly today.
Oh, then, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you spent, now, what was your parish in Redwood City?
Mont Carmel, and which is interesting because Father Bob Moran and Monsignor Sandersfield spent time there, and I probably crossed paths with Monsignor Sandersfield there. I vaguely remember, but that was way back in the early 60s, so forth. And then we went over to St. Anthony of Padua. And Father Coleman was there, and he started the kitchen there, and stuff, and that,
which is still going
which
strong.
is still going very strong, and then eventually moved to San Jose later. So it was Mount Carmel where I did my first communion, and then went to St. Anthony's.
And high school then, you were in San Jose?
No, I was in Sequoia High School in Redwood City.
Redwood City, okay.
Yeah, and then I didn't come down here till 1977.
Okay. All right, because then in 1981, the word came out that we were going to become a diocese.
That's right. That's right.
Do you remember, did you have any reaction to that?
Yeah, I think San Jose was always kind of in the shadows of San Francisco, right? Especially since I was in Redwood City, I was halfway between San Francisco and San Jose, so everything was San Francisco. San Jose was just an agricultural town, right?
Right.
And then I had moved down here, so just getting to know San Jose and such, and again with the archdiocese and so forth, it was San Francisco. So. To me, the areas are different. They're unique. They both have positives and negatives, obviously, and different cultures and so forth. So when that happened, I thought it was kind of interesting to me because it would allow San Jose to develop its own character in the way of being a diocese, which I think would be different than San Francisco. And I think that's, to me, it's obvious
to be true
right now. Yeah, I think there are some differences, and they each take advantage of their different communities. Yeah.
Now, were you at San Jose State?
For my undergraduate, I attended San Jose State, but I was still living in Redwood City at the time.
Oh, so you were doing the commute, which was not a problem at all.
Which was not a problem, man, because it was a 25-minute drive. There was no traffic, and just fly.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So then did my undergraduate there.
And then, all right. What parish were you in San Jose?
I started out at St. John the Baptist.
Oh, in Milpitas.
Okay, and then that's actually where we were married.
Ah.
Father Alfred Kelly.
Oh, yes.
Married us, and Father Pavalkas was the pastor there at that time.
Right.
Forever. And then we were living in North San Jose at the time. We were married and lived there, and then we moved farther south into Evergreen, where we're at now, and then we started going to Most Holy Trinity, and then the Evergreen Catholic mission started with Father Sandersfield at the time, which eventually became St. Francis of Assisi. So it's been with St. Francis of Assisi since, I still go to Mass at the Grange.
That was your community.
That was my community and still is. So now with St. Francis of Assisi for many years.
Backing up a little bit, when you were in Milpitas at St. John the Baptist, were you involved in ministry?
Yeah, to some extent. I was.
Because you were also a young professional.
I was young, and I was, focusing on my career. But I was with, getting confidence and getting involved in the church and so forth. So yes, I did things like usher. I helped out with the bingo on I think it was Friday nights, which was really a lot of work. So getting to know people and so forth, but that was a good time in my development. I did start getting more and more curious about church and spirituality and so forth. So things were starting to gel for me there.
Sure. Why don't you explain a little bit about St. Francis and how it's laid out? Because I mean, in terms of the history of our diocese, it's a high point.
Yes. Monsignor Sandersfield was always interested in creating a community of Catholics, Catholics that knew each other, that participated, that got involved. And one of the ways he wanted to assure that was to look at size of ecclesial communities, right? So, the typical large Catholic church may have, 1,000 or several hundred people come to Mass and they leave and see you later next Sunday, right? He wanted to help, lubricate that, possibility of trying to get people to know each other better, so fellowship comes easier, and invitation ministries becomes easier. And so he looked at creating different ecclesial communities in different parts of Evergreen Valley, and at that time I believe it was 6 or 7 sites. And so you would have groups of anywhere from 100 to a few hundred people coming together as an ecclesial community for Mass and for other events. And I still belong to my original ecclesial community, which was the Grange, the corner of San Felipe and
because that's where you
April.
met, right?
Yeah, and many of the original people that started out with the mission and so forth still go there, because it's that community. Yeah, and yes, we participate with other things that happen up on at the chapel and in the main site. But it is a really interesting model. I think it's got a lot of pluses, but the priests have to run around, so it's a little harder on them. But I think in general, the intent of the model has a lot of positives to it. And I've found that. I've seen not just our community, but other communities, they have an identity, right? And so trying to avoid that, large church where no one knows each other.
On a little different, but the end result has pretty much been the same as in Palo Alto when the 5 parishes came together. Now we're 3 worship centers. But you'll meet somebody and the first question is, what Mass do you go to, or what site? And it'll be St. Albert's at 9 or St. Thomas Aquinas at 7:30. And there is a kind of an identity that comes. But yeah, there is some running around. Father Matt once said that he was double booked almost, going to be at St. Albert's for 9 and then 10:30 at St. Thomas. So he just drove over in his album, But no, Father Sandersfield has done some wonderful things there. And of course, that parish has grown.
It's
that whole area.
It's huge, yeah, because you did have a large influx of people. Evergreen wasn't fully developed yet, and so it grew and grew and grew. And so there was a pretty good campaign to bring Catholics in the area and invite others to come to the St. Francis.
And Father Gene O'Donnell's pastor
Is there now.
And
Is
you
there
have a brand new.
Yeah, Father Michael, and so he's doing well, and I can't remember the
And
other.
Father Qua.
Qua.
Yes.
So so we're having to train a couple of the new priests in our
Oh, sure.
model. So I
Exactly,
think they're
'cause-
really enjoying it. I think they're
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Well, I'm hearing good things.
They've been very welcomed into the
That's
community.
great. Now, just switching a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about your work with the Mabel B. Wright Educational Fund?
That was interesting because you mentioned St. Albert's.
Uh-huh.
So when I graduated from Sequoia High School, I received a scholarship from what was called the Catholic Interracial Education Fund.
Okay.
And the person running that at that time was Etta Ritson,
Oh, yes.
who belonged
to St. Albert's, which is where I worship. Yeah.
And Etta was wonderful.
Yeah, she
so
was.
honestly, when I went to this assembly and she's given me my award, and it's like, who is this person and why does she care about me? So we became
Well,
good
tell us
friends.
about the award. you're
Well,
getting.
it was only for $100
Okay.
a semester,
Oh.
but recognized that the tuition at San Jose State at that time was $72 a semester.
All
So it paid
right.
for all of it, plus most
Plus,
of my books.
right, because books were not as bad then as they are now.
So it was interesting that I went into engineering school, and I was recruited by GE off campus like the first year. So I told Etta that I didn't need the money anymore because GE was paying for it, And she said, "No, you're doing well in school. Keep it." So, okay. So that happened, and we were very good friends. I made it a point to always touch base with her throughout the year, and our friendship developed. And I went off to graduate school in a few places, and we kept tabs. And then eventually, she asked me to participate with the Christian Interracial Education Fund. It's fine, so I got involved. And then one day she called me and she said, "Guess what? I just got a check for $1 million from a lady, Mabel B. Wright, who she knew from St. Albert's, and she left. She had no, kids or anything, so she gave us a check. So we changed the name in honor of her to the Mabel B. Wright Education Fund. So it's the same fund. So we provide scholarships to about 15 students each year, and we keep them on for 5 years maximum, but they have to go towards a bachelor's degree and show promise and show that they're working hard. And we kind of tell them, we expect you to come back when you're done to help in your community. So I think when you count all the numbers of people we have provided that, it's in the hundreds and hundreds. And I go back and I look at the archives that David Ritson gave me, his wife, after she passed away about 6 or 7 years ago. It's interesting to see all the names that have been touched by them. Wow. The way the Christian Interracial Education Fund was created with Archbishop McDuncan. She wrote a letter to him to ask him for funds to start this, right? And then she took it over.
She was a mover and a shaker.
She took it over and was raising monies through art sales and things like that, and was able to keep it going. And then we got the big boost from Mabel B. Wright, and that's still going. It's very strong. So obviously school is a lot more expensive, so we now give them $1,500
Imagine
a year.
From 100 to 50.
And it's all because of Mabel B. Wright, that connection with St. Albert's, and the CIEF and Mabel B. Wright Education Fund. Their biggest concern originally was the school. There at St. Elizabeth Seton. So we funded them for a significant amount of money to support providing scholarships for the kids that came over from East Palo Alto.
Right. And that was wonderful. My son went to Elizabeth Seton School, and the interracial aspect was the best education he ever received. And for me, it was wonderful because I got to know the moms on Hot Dog Day and Yard Duty and all the stuff that grammar school
it's that
moms
diversity,
do.
and it's like Notre Dame High downtown. You go there and you look at this is different. The diversity is and when you talk to the girls and the parents, because that's what they like. They like to see that diversity.
Absolutely. You've been active in education issues with Latinos, particularly.
That's my main. I mean, I do a lot of different things. You know, I'm involved with Alzheimer's at the Respite Research for Alzheimer's disease because my mom had Alzheimer's, so I'm chair of the board over there. And so anything that touched me, I'd like to be involved in. So to me, where I am now, economically, had to do with education because my parents had very little education from the background we came from. You know, I chose education as the way to provide for myself, my family, and others, right? So that's what I did. And so to me, the key and what I try to explain to kids when I meet with them is education. You got to go to school. You got to go to college. It's not going to be the answer to everything, but it certainly makes things a little easier if you don't have to worry about money. And then money a lot of times causes friction between people and so forth. So it helps, right? It's not the answer to everything. So I've always enjoyed getting involved in any kind of organization that does that. So quite a few now, MESA, Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement, Jose Valdez Math Institute, Olympico Learning, of course, Maybe We'll Be Right Education Fund, parts of Catholic Charities and things like that. So anything, Amigos de Guadalupe, where I actually mentor some of the Crystal Ray students that come over to work there, and I meet with them, you know, once or twice a month. Again, stressing life choices, education, how important education is, and for them to come back and to help others, and
to take the long view. You know, yes, if you go to work right away, okay, you'll make some money, but if you go on to school and then later on,
and that's something they don't necessarily get.
Well, but the immediate becomes.
They have a pressure.
Sure.
And I think my father kind of said that once to me. Why are you going to college? Go get a job. Because he didn't understand that link between college and later.
Future,
right? Later, he was very proud of the things
Sure.
I did, and I was proud of him for what he did. You know, I just did what I was there. I went to school. It wasn't a big deal, honestly, right?
Really?
It's there. It's what he did, coming to the United States with his family, with my mom, to do what they did for our family, and it paid off.
Yeah, I would say definitely. You've been involved with Catholic Charities for quite a while. Can you tell us a little bit about that involvement?
When I finished grad school at Berkeley, I was back and I said, I'm done with school. So, and so I called Catholic Social Service at the time, and I spoke with Helen Hansen. And I asked Helen, you know, where could I get involved and so forth, and I had the list of things. And my mom's mom, my grandmother, was she was in her declining years, and so I had an affinity to working with the elderly at the time. So we talked, and I said, I'm going to go to this Handicapables meeting. So I went over to St. Thomas of Canterbury, and I believe it was January of 1981. And Helen was there because she would actually run the meetings, right? She was really good with that. That was her, I think that's one of the first things she started at Catholic Social Service. And she was wonderful. And so that's where it started. So then I went the first time, and it's like, I kind of got hooked on it, so I enjoyed it. So a couple years later, my daughter was born, so I started bringing her to the meetings. And then it got to the point where if she didn't come for some reason, well, how come you didn't bring her?
Nice to see you, but where's your daughter?
So they, they kind of called her her mascot. So she grew up with the Handicapables, and some of the members are still around from back then, or they remember her from many years back, and they love it. And now when my daughter's in town, because she lives out in New Jersey, comes out, and she can make it to a meeting, they just love it. Plus now she brings her daughter, my granddaughter, and they just love that here's their little girl with so they really enjoy that, obviously. So that's where it started, and then later, got to know people, Mary Lou Christina, Diane Sign, and so forth. And then Eventually led to Diane asking for me to join the board, the Catholic Charities Board, which I did in, I believe, 2000, I think it was. So I served on the board for 6 years. Again, still with handicapables, and I still am. And then getting involved in other things, the Social Policy Committee and other types of committees there. Still am on some committees and helping step up Silicon Valley and things like that. And then Diane nominated me for the CCUSA board, the national board, which I joined, I think in 05, 06, and served on there for 9 years. They wouldn't let me go after I served my 6 years, and they kept finding a way to keep me on. So I finally ended, I believe, in 2013. So all that was a tremendous experience.
What were some of the joys?
I think, I mean, one of the easy ones is I'm just around a lot of people who were just committed to helping others, move their own interests out of the center of their life and concerned with helping people. And we had half the board were directors and half the board were outside at-large people, right? So getting to know all of them, and they were all different from different parts of the country. Rural versus urban, you got someone who was Catholic Charities rep for all of Kansas, and then you have the one from Brooklyn. It's a very, very different. So it was interesting to see the differences in what the agencies had to do. And so that was the people, right? And then Father Larry Schneider, who ran the Catholic Charities till a couple of years ago, and Sister Donna Markham now. Yeah. So I knew them very well, and I was Father Larry and Donna are like saints, in my life. So it was good to go through that process. I actually started when Father Larry started. So I was there pretty much all that time, except for his last year when I left. But that was good. But seeing the really big picture at the national level, I mean, Katrina happened right after that. So CCUSA got thrown right into it. And they did a wonderful job helping the people there. And I think they were recognized for that. And they came through. And Father Larry Schneider again, and all the disaster relief really, really came through for the people of New Orleans and surrounding areas. So that was on the larger level, and how they deal with the various agencies throughout the country and the relationships, even internationally also with Charities Internationalis. And then in my local level, at the Santa Clara County Catholic Charities, again, just all the wonderful different, I mean, there's so many things they do, right? I think nowadays it's like 40 programs or something like that. And Greg Kepferly's done a wonderful job.
Yes, and he's so enthusiastic.
Growing it and growing the budget, because there's such a need, and getting people to support that. And he's done a wonderful job. So it's really good to see, essentially the arm of the church really getting involved in the day-to-day difficulties of the people in the area.
And there has always been a good relationship between Catholic Charities and the Chancery. I mean, the Charities is part of the diocese, but between the two offices.
Yeah, even when Bishop Dumaine was here, the relationship between he and Helen Hansen was, I mean, they were amazing, good friends.
They were very
good friends. And then Bishop McGraw came in, and they were good friends. He would show when he could, and so she just loved it when Bishop could come, and so did everyone. Appreciate that. So, and then Bishop McGraw being the president or the chairman of the board, Catholic Charities Board, and an ex officio member, is very, very supportive of Catholic Charities, and I know Greg Kepferly has tremendous appreciation for Bishop's support of Catholic Charities.
So what are you involved with now that you're off the board?
Well, I'm still handicapable, so I'm helping with the Step Up Silicon Valley with Almaz Nagash there. And also with the social policy team, And
Talk a little bit about the social policy team.
it's a gathering to an extension of the board where they focus on social policy issues. So identifying and prioritizing recommendations on where Catholic Charities should support. And you rank those, right?
Sure.
And the board decides that, obviously. What are things we just watch? What are things you kind of get involved in? What are things you take the lead in, right? And what Catholic Charities does best, I think, is convene people. I mean, look at Step Up Silicon Valley. Their important thing is they bring all these people, regardless of where they come from, and they bring them in a room, and they convene them, and they're pretty good at that. They're very good at that. And that's what's important. But one of the other things I like to do, and I love direct contact more than
behind the desk.
But I love the direct contact. So whenever I can talk straight with students or whatever. So I have been doing poverty simulations for the last.
So with Elizabeth Lilly.
Yeah, with Liz Lilly, Angela Silvera, and others. So when I can't make one, it's like rats. But it's always fun to go because you see the impact on the people that are there to attend. And I honestly, some of these people just aren't aware of the difficulties of some people in this valley. So some of them walk out of there going, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So, and the best part of those simulations is that discussion group, the debriefing afterwards, where they're asked about how did you feel, what did you learn, things like that. And the other thing too in those groups is Liz usually tries to get a homeless ex or current homeless person. A lot of them come from downtown streets, and they share their story.
Oh my!
And that's very powerful.
I can imagine.
Very, very powerful. And so that's, and I get a lot out of that. I get to lead the groups, help leading that. So it's that, seeing that impact on people. Some may think it's a game, but most don't. But they think it's serious, and they take it very seriously. What I really like is when we've gone to the high schools. We've done it at Midia several times, at Bellarmine or whatever. And they're wonderful. The kids take it seriously,
they get it,
and they seem like they really get it. They really do. And for some of them, it's new to them, right? But it's really, really interesting to see that. You can see something bubbling up in them.
And you obviously love it. Your energy is just comes forth. Yeah. Let me also ask you about, you were in the pioneer class of the Institute for Leadership and Ministry, the first class that graduated. So can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I remember when Monsignor asked me if I was interested, and I do remember not even hesitating. Yeah, because I had already been thinking, I got to find something, and that was in '97.
That's right.
And I said, absolutely. And I knew it was going to be difficult because Wednesdays, it was on Wednesday nights. And it was, I would have early morning staff meetings starting at 6 on Wednesdays, which I'd have to go to, and then you work, right, and then get in the car and rush off to St. Lawrence at that time, and get home, gosh, it was 10 o'clock. So they were long days, but they went so fast. And I think, and so many people said that, because they were really enjoying them, and from the content of the discussions to the sharing and so forth. So, I think it's always important to, in your journey of life, to take a breath once in a while in terms of, okay, let's get away from the everyday hustle bustle. Take a little bit of time, one shape or another, right? At that time, ILM filled that need for me. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to, all the readings and the papers we have to write. And
back to school.
It's back to school. And so it kind of, I could have done it on my own, but it was encouragement, right? I had to get this done. So I got into my habit of getting back to school and stuff. So I really enjoyed that, learned a lot. So it really helped me focus, get back, move away from that everyday stuff and spend additional time to focus on the important things in life. And I'm doing that now through Ignatian Companions for Service and Spirituality,
all right.
which I finished my 2 years now
Good for
in
you.
Xavier, and I help on their regional council. And I think it's just a good thing to pick out times in your life that you can rejuvenate yourself. It's like, don't forget.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one takes the spirituality and the service and make sure they're connected, right? So it's just that you're not just doing service for social, I just got to go to, you're on automatic control right now. There's this aspect to it, and you got to make sure why it is you're doing these things. So that's been good. And I think ILM at the time also provided me with that reinforcement as to why I was doing the things I was doing. I was busy. I was working, and my parents and their health deteriorated with time, and then this. But it was like, you have to do this.
Well, you and your classmates, that particular class, when I think of the leadership that came out of it, what you were doing, there's two priests, Terry Garris and Larry Purcell, Linda Batten, who's done marvelous things for the diocese. I mean, that you guys set the bar. It was very fine. Yeah. So, anything else we should be talking about?
I think talking about the immigrant story, right? The DACA kids and those people that have no documentation. And my story, and the reason I'm involved with encouraging kids for education, and a lot of them are DACA kids or don't have any documentation. It's because I could have been them, right? The only difference between me and them is that back when I came, or when I was brought, I was only 2.5 years old, was that you could do it easily. Yeah. The same family today is 20 years. Yeah. It's just not reality, not recognizing the difficulties that people are going through to come here to make a better life for themselves and their family. So I very well could have one day asked my mom and dad, where's my paperwork? You don't have any paperwork. I wouldn't have known, right?
No.
This is my country, just like them. So there's no difference.
Exactly.
There's no difference. No difference. And all the kids I know in that situation, they're going to be wonderful people. They're going to be big contributors, and they just want that ability and that opening so they can go do that. And they will.
They will. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us. You've just made a real addition to our history, both before and even right now, just to let the people know what's been happening in San Jose. So thank you very much, Marcos.
Thank you, Ann.